I love to make cookies and give them away as gifts, but I have a few friends that do not like anything sweet. So one year I made them these cheddar cheese thumbprint cookies. They were such a hit. So today I'm going to share the recipe with you. Welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. Today we're gonna make some savory cheddar cookies and I'm gonna top them with a variety of different things. I'll go over what all the toppings are gonna be in just a minute, but first let's get our cheese and our butter starting to combine. So what you want for this recipe is 10 ounces of a sharp cheddar cheese. I'm using a sharp yellow. You could use white, your cookies will just be white. I've always used a sharp cheddar and only sharp cheddar in this recipe, but I think it would be fine if you wanted to add in a few other types of cheeses. You just want to make sure that the main ingredient is going to be your cheddar cheese, and you don't want to use the bag kind. This is a block of cheddar that I grated. The grates are pretty big, like the pieces are pretty big. That's because I have this new grater and it grates really large, but that doesn't matter. As long as you use 10 ounces, you can use any size grater. Just get them, into little strips like this. Then you want to leave your cheese out for about an hour. You want to grate it while it's cold because it'll make it easier for you, but then leave it out for about an hour so that it comes down to like room temperature or close to. It's going to make the blending a lot easier. You also need 5 tablespoons of butter. I'm using salted butter, but you could use unsalted. That's perfectly fine. One more thing about the cheese, though, I wanted to run back to. I was thinking that I think smoked cheddar would be so amazing to mix in with this. Like maybe 3 parts regular sharp cheddar and then the smoked cheddar for the other quarter, especially when I add the barbecue sauce topping. Oh my gosh, I think that would be so amazing. But I'm not doing that today. I'm going to keep it the traditional recipe. And this recipe is a take off of Trisha Yearwood's cheese straws. So I've made them a couple of times and I absolutely love them, but I wanted to do something different with the basic recipe. And so that's when I went to these thumbprint cheddar cookies. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm using the KitchenAid mixer, which is going to make life a lot easier. If you have a stand mixer, it is worth bringing it out to use for this recipe because there's a lot of blending going on. You can use a handheld mixer, but you're gonna be standing there for about 20-25 minutes getting this beat up because the consistency that we want is gonna be like a really thick whipped cream. All right, so let's go ahead and get the cheese into the bowl. And then the 5 tablespoons of butter, and that is also room temperature. Go ahead and put this down. Now, when I start off the mixer, I start on about speed 2, so that's the low. And then after it starts to combine, I will go up to about speed 6, sometimes even 8, and I whip it for a good 15 to 20 minutes. But at about 10 minutes, I will scrape down the sides, and that's when I preheat the oven. So let's go for 10 minutes, and then we'll check on the mixture. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. Now I'm gonna lift the mixer and scrape down the sides. It's coming together quite nicely, but we still have a little ways to go. So you can see it's becoming almost like a pimento cheese. In fact, this is how you make pimento cheese. So you could do that too. You could add in some pimentos and some seasonings and serve it like a cheese spread. Okay, so once your sides are scraped down, let me get some of this off of the scraper here. We're gonna go back down and we're gonna turn it on. I'm gonna go up to speed 8, which is really fast. We're gonna finish whipping this up and I'm gonna preheat the oven on 350 degrees. All right, we're almost there, but I'm still seeing some little chunks of cheese. Maybe my cheese wasn't, room temperature enough. So I'm just gonna scrape down and keep going until it becomes like a nice thick whipped cream. Like I said, like it's almost a moussey consistency. It's really, really a cool thing to make. And you can actually make it up to the mousse stage or the thick whipped cream stage. Don't worry about putting the flour and other ingredients in, and you can use it for a cheese ball or just a cheese snack, like those kind you get in the plastic containers. Some are port wine cheese, some are just sharp cheddar cheese. That's exactly what this tastes like. So you can definitely make that at home. It's delicious. right, that looks pretty good. So we're gonna go ahead now and sift our flour and our spices together. So what I have here is 1 cup of all-purpose flour. I'm gonna put it into this bowl right here and just sift it. Now, the reason that we sift the flour is because we need it to combine with the cheese and not clump up. So I definitely recommend doing this. And I think my fine sieve is a little bit damp from the dishwasher, so it's not coming out as well. So I'm just gonna do this and get this done. Then we will mix in the spices. Now, I kept the spices very simple, but you can get creative and do all kinds of different things. Do whatever you want, but I'm using 1/2 teaspoon of fine grind sea salt, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and 1/8 teaspoon of a chipotle spice, so a chipotle powder. And put in those spices and then mix that up. And that's it. That's all the ingredients that go into the cookie base. So you don't need any baking powder or baking soda or anything like that. Now these cookies have just a tiny bit of spice from that chipotle. So if you don't like any spice, omit that, and you can omit the black pepper as well. Scrape down the sides again, and let me just show you the final consistency, okay? So it's thick, but it's like nice and creamy, and all the cheese is sort of dissolved. It's really incredible. It's an incredible texture. All right, now what I like to do is put in about 1/4 of this mixture, so like 1/4 of a cup at a time. And just mix it on low speed. All right, so we'll let that mix up for just about a minute, and then we will get to forming our savory cheddar cookies. All right, it looks great. Now it's a lot stiffer, a lot thicker, and of course the flour's in there, so now you definitely want to bake them at this point. So this would not be something you would want to spread on a cracker. If you want to do it that way, don't add in the flour. But you can add in the seasonings. That would be perfectly fine. Now, if you see any flour still in the bottom or on the sides, just sort of fold it into the cheese mixture, okay? So you don't see any flour. All right, that looks good. Now we can start to form our cookies. What I have here is 2 sheet pans that are parchment lined. You don't absolutely have to use parchment paper. I just like to use it. I think it makes, number one, cleanup really easy, but you can just put some butter down or some spray, whatever you want on your cookie sheet. Now to form the cookies, I use a cookie scoop, okay? This is a 1 tablespoon scoop. It's a small scoop from Pampered Chef. I love it, but you could use a spoon, anything, a tablespoon, anything you want. Just you want about a tablespoon of the mixture for each cookie. I just scoop it out and put it on there. Now these don't spread too much, but they do spread a little bit. So usually I do 3 across and 4 down. All right, so you want to leave a couple of inches between each cookie, so it looks like I can fit 9 on here comfortably. And this is a tray that fits into my XL oven, so it's the perfect size. For that, I'm gonna do 2 trays at a time. You can get more on your cookie sheet if you're using a regular size oven. You can get probably a dozen on each sheet. You wanna leave at least 2 inches in between each ball. This is probably even maybe 3 inches. We're gonna flatten them down. And to do that, I use a tart shaper. The reason why I like to use the tart shaper is because it makes this perfect little divot in the middle, and then the sides stay raised up, and it's like a little cup that holds my fillings. But if you don't have a tart shaper, don't worry about it. You can use the back of a spoon, you can use your thumb, you can use the back of the scoop, anything that will work to get the center depressed. And I also coat it in a little bit of flour just so it doesn't stick, and I press right down in the center, sort of do like a little twisty motion, and then lift it up. Some came off there, that's fine. That's why I use the flour. So I'll just dip that back in flour for the next one. Now, if there are any areas here that are split, I do go ahead and try to form them back together so they look like a little cup. That way my filling won't leak out. Don't worry about that little bit of flour that's left on the top. It will bake right in. All right, now let's say you just wanted to make the cookies, the cheddar cookies, but you didn't want to fill them with anything. That's perfectly fine. You can do it with a fork, just sort of, oops, I should have put flour on it. Anyway, we'll peel this off. So just gently press them down a little bit with a fork, and they're gonna look like a peanut butter cookie, okay? And I'll show you a few other ways to do them with the next tray. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and get these filled with some of our toppings, okay? The first topping I have here is just a regular barbecue sauce, okay? This is my 10-minute barbecue sauce recipe. It is a sweet and tomato-based sauce. It's, oh my gosh, it's so delicious. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that into one of these. You want about 1/2 teaspoon in each one, okay? Because if you put too much, it's just gonna overflow. All right, the next one I'm gonna do is a jalapeno jelly. Oh my gosh. So this is my jalapeno pepper jelly, and it is amazing with these cookies. So again, about 1/2 teaspoon. Get that right to the middle there. Now, if your jelly, if you're using some other kind of jelly, if it's too runny, it's just going to melt under the heat and it's going to just go all over the place. I've done that. It's still delicious though, okay? So if you want to do that, be my guest. It doesn't really matter. They're still really delicious. But this is a little bit thicker, so hopefully they'll stay right in the center. All right, let's move on to the next one we're gonna use. One thing I didn't have on hand and I didn't have time to make is my raspberry barbecue sauce. That is amazing in this recipe. That's what I originally made the cookies with to give away to my friend. Oh my gosh. The raspberry and the blueberry barbecue sauce are so delicious with these cheddar cookies. All right, next up is my jalapeno wine jelly, which I do not have a formal recipe for. I have not gotten around to that yet. But basically it's the jalapeno pepper jelly, but it's made with wine and it's really, really good. So we're gonna go ahead and get that out into a couple of these. All right, that looks good. All right, let me make up the next tray and then I'm gonna talk about a few other toppings that I tried for the first time and they were delicious. All right, so for the last toppings that I'm gonna do, this is pepper onion relish, and I have a recipe for it, so I will definitely link below the video. I'll link all these recipes below the video. I'm gonna add that to the top here, but I wanna make sure I don't get a lot of the juice. So I like to take it and squeeze it on the side to kind of get out any of the juice that might be there. And again, you just wanna use about 1/2 teaspoon. So I'm just gonna put a little bit there on top, do this one. And then the next one probably will really surprise you. And I wasn't sure how it was gonna taste, but oh my gosh, it was amazing. I can't even pick a favorite because they're all so good, but they're all different. And when I'm making appetizers for a party or gifts to give away, I like to have different things to offer. And this makes it easy because you make up one base, you put all different kinds of toppings on there. It's the same base, so it's just one recipe, and then add different toppings, and it looks like you have a ton of different kinds of appetizers, and they all taste a little bit different. All right, next up is homemade apple butter. I also have a recipe for this, so I will definitely link to that. And you can use store-bought too. The important thing about the apple butter is you do want it to be thick, okay? If it's really runny, it's gonna run all over the place. All right, so Put that in there. Oh my gosh. So the apple butter I thought of because a lot of people with their apple pie enjoy cheddar cheese with it. I have never been that person. I've never tried it really because it just sounds kind of odd. But oh my gosh, these are so good. So now I see what the appeal is for that. Now, if you don't want to use fillings or you want to just do some plain savory cheddar cookies, then you can do that. Just put them into balls and you want to just press them down a little bit until they're about the size of a $0.50. You can do that with your hands. You could do that with the tart shaper, whatever you have that will flatten them out. The bottom of a glass will work just fine. So let's say you don't want to add the fillings and you don't want to do the crisscross with the fork. Well, you can use a little spoon and go around the edges too. You could do a single or a double. Just make a little design. You could do it just on one side. That looks kind of pretty. You could even keep going up that way. You know, that looks kind of pretty. And then it will bake with a little design. Or you could go on each side here. My spoon is sticking a little bit. If you find, like let's say you're going to decorate, because I think this is what's happened to me. If you're going to decorate the tops and you're not putting the fillings on and your dough gets a little bit too warm, it's gonna stick to whatever you're trying to decorate. So, you know, keep that in mind and refrigerate it if you need to. So really I'm making a mess of this, but you know, you get the gist. You can just put all kinds of things, all kinds of different decorations that you want. And then you can also make them into cookie shapes, you know, like cookie cutter shapes. And I'm gonna show you that with the next batch. So there we go. All right, now let's get them into the oven. So I preheated the oven. It's been preheating for a good, gosh, I think 20 minutes, okay? Normally 10 minutes is perfectly fine. And I set the temperature at 350 degrees. Now this is a convection style oven. So I set it at 350 because it runs about 20 degrees lower than what I set it. So ovens aren't always accurate, okay? Even, you know, standalone ovens and wall ovens and things like that. So when I did a temperature, it was about 20 degrees difference. So I went up to 350. If your oven is a convection oven and it's an accurate temperature, go on 325, okay? But I'm gonna do 350. If you're using a regular oven that's not a convection oven, I would go about 350 degrees. And always watch how they're cooking. If they're getting too dark too quickly, then turn your heat down. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and slide this in. Now, for those of you that have the XL Pro Ninja Foodi air fry oven, I'm using settings 1 and 3. I'm gonna put those in and let me make sure I have it set here too on 1 and 3. There we go. And now I wanna go for 15 minutes. So I'm gonna set the time for 15 and I'm gonna watch them in about minute 12 and I'll pull them out anywhere between 13 minutes and 15 minutes, just depending on how they're cooking. All right, so while that batch is cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and put out the rest of this dough because I wanna get it in the refrigerator so that I can do the little cutouts and show you how that works. All right, so let's go ahead and get this off here. It is getting warm, so it is getting stickier and stickier. That's why, I mean, you can definitely use it right now for cutouts. It's just gonna be a little bit more challenging. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just flatten this out, move my parchment over and use that to kind of help me flatten it all out here. You want it to be about 1/4 inch thick. I can probably go a little bit more here. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Yep, that looks great. So now what I'm gonna do is just pop this right in the refrigerator just for about 10 or 15 minutes until that batch is done, and then we'll get these cut out and we'll get them baking. So it's been 12 minutes. I wanna go ahead and check. Now you can check just from turning on the light in your oven, but because I'm at such an angle, I really need to pull one of the trays out. So I'm gonna open up the oven here and pull this out. They're looking good, but they definitely still can go a little bit longer. So I'm gonna keep them in. So I'm gonna go the whole 15 minutes on this batch. And I might even need to go 16 minutes. I'll know a little bit more when we get to about the 14, 15 minute mark. All right, let me take a peek and see if they are done. It's been 15 minutes at 350. They look pretty good, so I am thinking that they are done. I'm just gonna close that up for a second and go ahead and get these off of the parchment. I like to put them immediately onto a cooling rack so that the bottoms will crisp up and not steam up. So if you keep them on the hot surface, they kind of create steam under there. But if you put them on a cooling rack, it allows for better airflow. Look at how beautiful these are. Oh my gosh. Now my designs did not turn out very well, I'll be honest. So maybe you can do better than me. All right, there we go. Let's get the other one out, and then we will get our cookie cutouts done. Oops, I just stuck my finger right in the wine jelly. Oh well, things happen, right? Now you can see, so the pepper jelly did really well in the center. However, some of the other darker jellies sort of kind of went everywhere. So this is the jalapeno wine jelly, and it's sort of spread out a little bit more. Now they're still absolutely delicious, but they're just not as perfect looking. You can also see where the second tray that was underneath really kept all of their fillings right in the center, and that's because they were blocked from that direct heat and probably the fan a little bit. The fan comes from the back of this oven, but I think just the way that it was sitting, it just wasn't getting, well, it wasn't getting the direct heat. I think that's the main thing. Anyway, so if you wanted to have all perfect centers like these, do one tray at a time and put another tray on top to kind of protect that bottom tray, and it should work out just perfectly for you. All right. Go ahead and get these on to cool. Now, once they are cold, you can store them in any type of container you want. What I like to do is put them in a single layer and then put a piece of parchment on top and then another single layer so that they don't get, so the toppings don't hit the bottom of the cookie. All right, let me go ahead and clean this up and get out the ones that we're gonna use cookie cutters on. All right, so I have the oven preheating again. Even though it's just a short period of time, I want to go ahead and make sure that we go in when it's at the right temperature. I also moved one of the racks down to 2 because I'm only cooking in a single layer, so I'm just going to use the number 2 slot. Now my dough has chilled. And I'm using the rack that comes, or the tray that comes with the Ninja Foodi oven. So that's what I'm going to use for this one. And then we just simply do our cutouts. Now I'm using Christmas cutouts, but obviously any kind of cookie cutter will work. I like to dip them in the flour, same as before, and then just press straight down and go up. And then we'll kind of pop them out here. When the dough is firm, they're really easy to make, okay? And then, of course, with anything that's left over, you can roll it, chill it again, and start over. But I'm not going to do that in this video. I will use that up later. All right, there we go. And then for decorating, use some spices. So what I have here is a little bit of dried thyme leaves. So I'll put those over the Christmas trees. All right, so let me put some parsley on the stockings. We'll put some red pepper flakes on the snowflakes here. All right, a little chipotle powder on the stars. And the candy canes. All right, we're gonna pop them in the oven, same temperature, and probably the same time, but these are a little bit smaller, I think, so they might take a little bit less time. Now, remember when I said earlier in the video that you could stop after blending the cheese and the butter and turn it into a cheese ball or some kind of a snack spread? Well, I did that, so I'm gonna show you how it works. So what I did was I lined a bowl with some saran wrap just to make it a little bit easier. Then I put it in the refrigerator while we did this video. Now I'm gonna put it out on a plate here. There we go. Oh, it doesn't look very pretty. I didn't smooth it out enough. It'll be just fine though. Now you could certainly make it into a complete ball. You could actually put it with crushed nuts, things like that. If you wanted to go a little retro, like the old, cheese balls with nuts, but I'm not gonna worry about that. And it is just a really nice spread for crackers. Nice little cheese spread. Now I would let it warm up just a little bit. It'll be a little bit easier to spread, but it makes a great appetizer. Oh my goodness, that is so delicious. Nice and sharp, and oh, it's so delicious. One thing I would say though, I might have added a little bit more butter if I was gonna do it this way, just to have it a little bit creamier. It's still, as it gets cold again, it's still not quite as spreadable as I would like. But I think if it sits out for a few minutes, it's gonna be just fine. Or you can add in another couple tablespoons of butter in with your cheddar cheese, and that'll make it a little bit creamier, I think. The other thing you can do is add in spices to this, okay? So you can make this a spiced cheddar cheese spread, okay? All right, so that's just another idea. Quick and easy appetizer. All right, with just over 3 minutes left, they look done to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull them out here. Yeah, they definitely look done. Now, why did they cook quicker? Well, a couple of reasons. The oven was super hot because we have just finished cooking. I'm using a dark cookie tray. That makes a difference. And these are a little bit smaller. So all of those things, and it took a little bit less time to cook. They're also a little thinner, I think. So some of them lost their shape, but they're still pretty cute. Get them on to cool, and then we'll give them a taste. So there you go. Whether you want to make savory cheddar crackers with topping, plain, you want to make dots, you want to make cutouts, you want to make little straws or strips like this, or you want to make a cheese ball without the flour. This recipe can do all of it, and it's so easy. All right, let me give it a taste so I can describe the texture of these. So this is the one with the pepper jelly, and they are crispy on the outside. Oh my. Wow. My favorite, I think. I mean, I tried them all because I've tested the recipe. So good. So let me describe. So it's really crispy on the outside and then a little bit softer in the center. And then of course you have the topping. So it's like got a little vinegar. It's really cheesy. These are absolutely delicious. I talked to Jeff about, I wonder if you put a little bit of cream cheese there and then this topping. It might be over the top a little bit, but I think once it chilled, cooled down, I think it would be really good. So you can get so creative with these. Then if you just want to make them plain, they are pretty crispy and pretty airy, okay? Because you don't have the added liquid from the topping. So these are really nice to serve just as a little snack. They're perfect. You can make them any size you want, put any type of seasoning on top. Really, just get creative and make them the way that you're gonna love them. As always, make it yours, make it delicious, and keep it real.